two pawns d5 and c4. White takes a standard course of resolving this tension by capturing. Black captures, tempo the e4 pawn, and now black chops on c3, white captures. And we have a position that's been reached many times in tournament games. White has the great centre, and black will attempt to undermine this centre with their pieces, the c pawn, but mainly the knight and the bishop. Continuing with the game, Zhao develops his bishop. Lilly decides to put his bishop on c4, standard move. Pawn on c5 attacks d4, defended by knight a2. This is the old system. Nowadays, a lot of players like the move knight f3. But with this particular move order, the light squared bishop is normally developed on the e2 square. So we'll just follow what was played in the game. Knight e2, black castles, white castles. Black attacks the center with knight c6, defending of the center. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 defenders of the d4 center square, and black has 1, 2, 3, 4 attacks on the d4 center square. And this is what the idea of the Grunfeld is. The idea is to attack the center, which white has formed. Black players normally get pretty good active counterplay around the center in this particular variation. So queen c7 is an interesting move, and again we're still in theory here. The queen now has a veiled threat on the bishop. For example, pawn takes, c takes, and then knight d4 is a threat because the queen can't capture because of bishop g7. So normally the white players play a move like rook c1 here, which protects the bishop by placing the rook on the c file. Let's look at what happens. Rook b1. When I saw this surprised me. I hadn't seen this idea before. I thought there was danger to the bishop, but it turns out, as we can see, Houdini says it's equal after. Let's look at the variation that I just talked about. Pawn takes, and if knight d4, I presume the idea is something like bishop f7. Bishop takes f7. Rook takes. Knight takes d4. The engine gives this about equal. Personally, I prefer black. I prefer black a little bit here because I think the two bishops should be pretty good. Although white does have a very nice pawn structure on the king side with h2, g2, f2, and e4. Anyway, this wasn't played in the game, so and it turns out to be an interesting move. Rook b1. Instead, rook d8 was played. And this was a good move. It puts pressure on the center. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The queen's defending, however, so not so good. How did white respond? Well, white played queen d2. Move I wasn't expecting. Now, black's next move was e6, which blockades the pawn on d5. However, I did wonder at the time, why not take again on d4? Yeah, it can't be bad, I don't think. In fact, the engine's saying it's not bad, so knight takes d4. Bishop takes f7. This is the king takes. Knight d4. And I thought e5 myself was a pretty good move. Computer says queen d7. That makes sense because you'll have 3. After queen d7 we have 1, 2, 3 attackers on the d4 there, and only 2 defenders. However, I couldn't help asking myself what was wrong with e5 straight away. New variation. I presume knight b5 is the problem. Something along those lines. Yeah, knight b5 it seems gives white a clear advantage actually, which is a little bit surprising, but makes sense. The rook on a8 is probably going to be on a variation, so knight b5. Best move this is the queen, and of course we can see in the fourth variation here that knight takes a8 is a problem if the rook takes on d2. So e5 wasn't good.